let's do Dallas. And again, this is how do you keep Luka Doncic from getting more pissed off? Because it seems like every report that came out is he was mad at somebody.
I wonder if he and Zion are going to be case studies in how much power guys on rookie deals or signing their second contracts actually have. Because no, I don't think they're not going to sign those deals. Doncic is going to sign his this summer, but like our team's already starting to worry about them leaving, even though they have 4 or 5 years left on their contract.
Well, do you remember? I feel like it was a couple years ago when this was a conversation we were having about Karl Anthony Towns, not you and I, but a conversation was being had where the Wolves have just messed everything up. It was before they got Russell, which was clearly just to appease Towns. And it was like, if he did, and he'd already been maxed out or he'd signed it, maybe it hadn't even kicked in yet. And what happens if Karl Towns says, I want out of here? And I think maybe it was on a Low Post podcast or something. And the thought was that the Wolves would say, like, no, sorry, you can just sit down and not play. We are not trading you. Now the clock's moved up even more because these guys aren't even, we've moved 2 years up. So I agree. I think the Dallas situation is a little different than New Orleans because New Orleans, like, sorry, but it's a backwater NBA team, right? Like their attendance is always among the lowest. It's just like you're in SEC football country. You're not going to be the biggest game in town. All they do is lose their best players. That's different. Dallas is, certainly had very high profile problems in the management side of things. But it seems to be a functional on-court operation. And they tend to be pretty good. So at least you have that working for you. But like Luka doesn't seem to be happy with anybody that was in a position of power. So that's overhanging all of this. Jason Kidd is your coach now. That's fun. What
fun? Yeah, that's a way to put it.
What does that do? Yeah, fun, big quotes around fun. Like terrible decision. But so you does that attract players? Do guys want to come play for Jason Kidd? I don't know. The sort of nitty gritty of all this then is like, is this the summer Dallas makes a move before they have to deal with Doncic's extension kicking in? Is there a Porzingis trade out there? What are you going to do with Tim Hardaway Jr.'s unrestricted free agency? Josh Richardson has a player option. There's a path for them theoretically to clear enough money to go get a Kyle Lowry or someone in that like slightly sub max.
They're probably the biggest threat to Conley, I feel like, right? For some reason. I don't know why, but just like he's played in Utah, he's played in Memphis, go to Dallas.
If you're in for Lowry, you're in for Conley. It's like, if that's your type, that's your type. They're not, it's kind of the same idea. But the timing thing is interesting to me because the free agent crop is way better next year. There's a ton of like, now that's a number 2 to Luka, which we agree now, and you are way ahead on this. Porzingis is not and has never been. So your shot is next offseason, I think, if that's what you're going for. Or do you need to do something now because Luka's getting a little antsy? I don't know. There's just a lot of competing concerns with, again, the one thing you can never do as a franchise is drive your best player and your, generational talent out of town. And like, that's a like low-key risk if things don't go great over this offseason and the next one.
Yeah, and I think it was John Hollinger and Nate Duncan posed this question. I don't necessarily like looking at players in these terms, but it was basically, they asked, would you rather have Tim Hardaway Jr. or your, 18 to 25 million in cap space? And I look at the free agent market and I honestly don't know. If you're going to get a Lowry or a Conley, the answer is pretty easy, but how likely are you to get those guys when you've never hit, have you ever hit a triple in free agency? They've tried they've tried to swing for homers, and I wouldn't call those guys homers necessarily because of their age and what they'll cost, but and there are other things they could do if you want to maybe keep Hardaway as I don't think he'll cost. I mean, if they end up paying him $19 million a year like he made this year, that's tough. But if Josh Richardson opts out, because $11.6 million is like right on the cusp. I don't know who wants to pay him that right now, but there's a dearth of wings available. And in theory, we're dating back 2 years now, but in theory, he could make shots off the dribble. In theory, he can hit threes. And he wasn't great on defense this year, but in theory, he could defend 1 through 4. So maybe he opts out and that gives you more wiggle room. Do you grease the wheels of a Dwight Powell salary dump? So you could maybe keep Tim Hardaway Jr. and add these other guys, but then it's like, well, have you then steered way too far into offense? And is it, if it's Tim Hardaway Jr. and Mike Conley or Kyle Lowry's your offseason and you've burned some equity because you dumped Josh Richardson, you've dumped Dwight Powell, like, are those the moves that elevate you to title contention? I don't know. Maybe, because I do think that putting any kind of secondary shot creator around Luka Doncic goes a long way, just because we've seen how dangerous the Mavs can be at the beginning of series when it's just him. He just seems to peter out towards the end. They might come close, but it feels the collateral damage that would be involved. It just feels like it's not worth it. But then I'm like, okay, well, are you worried about keeping Josh Richardson or Tim Hardaway Jr.? Why am I overthinking this? So I'm fascinated by their offseason too, because I don't know what they do. And it seems like a big trade is out of the question unless they move Porzingis. And I don't know how much value he has at 3 years, $101.5 million left. I think he's probably more intriguing than a Kemba Walker at 2 years and 73, whatever he's at. But that's also not saying much. It just took the number 16 pick, essentially, to grease the wheels of a Kemba Walker dump. And you still had to take back an Al Horford, who's good, but, like, that contract is weird. Like, he has, like, half guarantee in the final season. So it's like, do we pay Al Horford $14 million to go away? Or do we just eat him at 27 or whatever he's on the books for in that final year? Which is 26.5. I was close.
It shouldn't be like just looking at, well, what do the Mavs do? What are their options? Like, it feels bizarre that there's urgency, because, like, this shouldn't be hard. You already did the hard part. You got, the best under 25 player in the league, and that can just do everything. Be your entire, like,
Trey and Ayton have both been to the conference finals or beyond. Luka has not.
Right. What's Luka ever done? Like, but it shouldn't be hard. And it feels like Dallas has kind of, I don't know. I just, so in answer to your first question, or that you brought up, like, well, what's better, 18 to whatever, 22, 25 million in cap space or Tim Hardaway Jr.? The answer is it depends. And it depends on, well, what free agent crop are we talking about? Like, what's out there this summer? I don't know. Like, I think you said, like, I don't know what that money's going to get you. That's a significant upgrade that isn't going to tie up a bunch of money next offseason. Because I do think, like, we've seen that it can be a mistake to build your long-term plans around a particular offseason where you think a particular free agent, Giannis, is going to be available, and then he's not. So, like, everybody wants to save cap space for 2022 because, it's going to be a better crop, whatever. Like, a little risky. But it is clear that as of now, the free agents that might be available then are better. So if you're Dallas, is there a balloon deal you can give someone? Like, not really, because you can't, a 1-year deal, because you can't really, like, what's the point of paying Tim Hardaway Jr. like a whole bunch of money on, like, a 1+1 where it's a team option on this? Like, what's that get you? You're not getting appreciably better. And Luka's good enough to help you contend right now. So I don't know. The timing part of this, again, is, like, the most fascinating aspect of it, because I just don't know how they kind of thread the needle of, we need to contend next year because Luka's ready, but then we also want to be able to contend for 5 more so that he stays happy. I don't know what the answer is.
Well, and the other thing is, too, is that Luka Doncic is going to be on his Supermax. So I don't know why you'd conserve room that you're not going to have. Between him and Kristaps Porzingis, not next season, but the season after, you're looking at more than $60 million of commitments right there. And so plus Dwight Powell, you're over 70. I'm assuming you bring back Kleba at 9. That's 80. Like, cap space very quickly goes out the window. And I'm assuming you want to keep Dorian Finney-Smith, cap hold 7.6. You're not going to get max room. You'll have to move Porzingis. And so I'm a big fan of create cap space when you need it. So if there's good players to bring in on multi-year deals, do it. I just don't know what this team, the quality of talent, gets them with the money that they'll have to spend. And I still don't have an answer to, would you rather have, if that's the choice, the full breadth of your cap spending power or Tim Hardaway Jr.? I don't know.
Well, I mean, what are you going to pay to bring JJ Redick back? That's the real question.